Welcome to Trauma and Transcendence, where healing meets transformation. I'm Amanda M. Dodd, guiding you beyond pain into purpose. Let's explore the journey together. Hello, soulful seekers. Welcome back to Trauma and Transcendence. And as you can see, I've got a brand new guest for you. Today, I've got James. Please don't hate me if I mispronounce this. It's Szeles, right? Wow. I would not have gotten that.
Yes, it's silent with a P in pool.
Okay. And you have been a stage hypnotist for how many years?
44 years.
44 years. That's longer than I've been alive.
I've got t-shirts older than you.
I was born in 83. And we had the fortune of meeting in person at HypnoThoughts, but we met a little bit before that online because of our mutual friend, Jim Kellner, who's no longer with us.
Yeah, I had reached out to you in an email when I see your HypnoThoughts. And I said to Jim, Amanda's going to do my reading. Have you heard of her? And you had just done a reading with him. Oh, yeah, she's great. He kind of introduced me to you. Yeah.
Jim never signed up for a reading because he was terrified of the whole concept of mediumship. And so what had actually happened was we met at the Michigan Hypnosis Conference as I started joining in the hypnosis conference circuit.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I talk about because there's a fascinating space between mediumship and hypnosis. And I'm one of the few people who likes to play in both realms. And there's something about both realms that are very, very conducive to doing this work.
Yeah.
And so as a hypnotist, when we have someone going through a meditation or they're in trance and they're having like visual stimuli, we might call that visual hallucination or imagery. A psychic, a medium, that's clairvoyance. And it all just kind of comes down to semantics. And so I was speaking about my experiences, and he popped into my talk at one point, and he went, 3 shades whiter. And then at one point later on, he's like, come on to my podcast and talk about this. Come on to Hypnosis Heroes. And I said, sure. Didn't really know what to expect, and so I popped on to Hypnosis Heroes, where they kind of interview a different hypnotic hero working in the field and whatever their specialty is. And the minute I got there, Brian Bay, who's a very good friend of Jim's and also helps with that podcast, was kind of just not enamored, but like fascinated with the whole concept of mediumship. And I think maybe he was very skeptical. Like, he really didn't believe in that at all. And so it's kind of fun, and I love a good skeptic.
I bet you get skeptics a lot.
Oh, I do. And it doesn't bother me in the least, because I used to be very skeptical. I had a very skeptical mind, even despite having these experiences since childhood. And so I highly respect the skeptical people. I kind of still am one.
There's a lot of mediums that aren't really mediums, and that's where you run into, well, they're not doing cold readings, blah, blah, blah. But, a good medium will tell you something that they couldn't know. That's the convincer.
That's the biggest part. Yeah, it's the biggest part. And the whole thing is an act of trust and surrender. So it's very vulnerable to do mediumship work. I know you'd love me to do more readings, but that's a big part of why I don't. It's a huge amount of energy. And so every time it's a surrender of trust. And even when I was on the podcast, it's like, okay, I connect to source, I'm trusting, I'm allowing, and I'm getting out of the way. So if you'd like to use me as a conduit, you better help me out here. That is the spiritual pre-talk that happens.
For 2 years to get a reading. And I thought, okay, well, and then you were kind of tired that you weren't sure if you could do it. And I thought, I'd be so bummed if that didn't happen.
Yeah.
With that, those slight HypnoThoughts, that was the highlight of my HypnoThoughts that year.
So why did it take you so long to find someone? 2 years is a long time.
Because I don't want to pay for somebody if I don't know they're good.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't mind putting out $200, $300, $400, but what if you get a reading and you're not happy with it? Then you go, well,
I never charge that anyway.
Yeah, you should. You should increase your prices. But that was my big thing. And then, like we said earlier, when I contacted you and Jim validated you, I thought, okay. But then I was like, well, I'm kind of tired, Jim. Can we do it Sunday morning at 7 a.m.? And I'm like, yeah. But it all worked out. We did Saturday night. It was kind of cool. And it changed my life, that's for sure.
Well, the hesitation that I had, it wasn't so much as could I do it, it's Hypnothoughts is already a huge event. So that's for the non-hypnotists who listen to this podcast, that's a conference that has somewhere between 700 and 1,000 people coming in, all to train hypnosis. There's a lot of stuff happening. There are lots of little subgroups and things to learn. And then there's the Vegas energy, which is a thing all on its own.
I love Vegas. That's one of my favorite cities to visit.
But as an empath, we feel that. So walking through the casino, it feels very different to me than it probably feels for most people. For me, I feel the addiction. I feel the density. I feel the compulsiveness, the obsessiveness that some people have when they're there. I feel that lower vibrational energy. It actually takes a huge toll. But for most people, they go into Vegas and they're enamored by the lights and the sounds and all of the sensory. And for me, it's like, oh, Lord, it's going to drain my battery. But so the amazing thing was on that podcast with Jim, although he didn't want me to do readings, Brian did. And Brian actually had some people that had passed. And that was my first time meeting Brian in person, which is how I do any reading ever if I'm going to. And even when you reached me via email, I was like, don't tell me anything. I don't want to know. Mum is the word. Don't even add me on Facebook. I don't want to know anything because it'll get in the way. And so there I was on the podcast, and I led everybody through meditation because that's how I get myself ready for the mediumship reading. It's adjusting that vibration, which is a huge part of it. And that's why I had to wait for your reading, was because I had to get my vibration right. And then the next thing is intention.
Yeah, you were tired that night. Appreciate that doing that.
Yeah. And so then after the meditation, I was in the right vibe. I was then able to actually just read for people. And so the first couple of readings that came through were for Brian Bay and the people that he'd had transition. And then there was a moment, and this happens a lot with mediumship. There's a moment where there's truth that's so validating, but also incomprehensible about how a stranger could know this. That just squashes all the doubt. And for most mediums, they call that the clincher. It's the clincher moment.
Yeah, that was me. Exactly.
And Brian Bay as well. And when Brian Bay was in tears, that's when Jim was like, oh my God, she's real. This is terrifying. And ever since then, he's always been behind me in terms of what I do with that and putting me out in the world to do more of it. But it evolves. So for me, mediumship is a very living, breathing kind of thing. It's an energetic exchange. It's alive.
Can you turn it off if you have to?
I what?
Can you block the energy if you have to? Like when you go to Vegas, you're overwhelmed. Can you kind of shut it down?
Yeah, no, I have to shut it down sometimes. Especially like if I'm doing things like driving. This is so embarrassing. I didn't drive until almost early 30s.
Oh.
Because if the gift was super active, there I am trying to focus on the road, and I'm seeing loved ones in spirit as I'm driving. They're hopping in the car. They're talking to me, looking at me in the mirror, telling me their story, wanting help. And it's like, I can't focus on the road. I'd like to remain living here. So no, I didn't drive until I was 30. And by that point, it became a practice of how do I shut this down so that when I'm reading. And when I'm not, I am full on living. Yeah, that's a whole lot easier to manage.
In hotel rooms, can you feel the people? I mean, we walk into a hotel. I imagine any building, walk in any building, you get that. Yeah, that sense. Yeah.
The worst one was going to sleepovers as a little kid. Because I'd forget that I was different and I didn't know how different I was. And right around 11 o'clock, midnight until 3 a.m., the house gets very quiet. It's easier to get into theta state and to naturally be in trance. And then the energy that lives in the house becomes alive. And whether it's the impressions that are left by the living people. So you know how when there's an argument, You walk into the room after, you can still feel it in the air.
Yeah.
It's like that. I
We
can
yeah.
feel impressions of things.
We give off energy. That energy is radiates from us. That's where you're kind of, yeah. You pick, I trust my instincts. I've always trusted my instincts. I've always been dead on.
Yeah.
So I know. Boom.
You call it your instincts. Where do you feel it as it's happening?
I see it. It's like a voice talking to me, almost like, whoa, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. You know, it's really strong.
As a medium, I call that clairaudience.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a little bit of an intuitive too. I mean, I can feel people. My wife will be thinking about something, and I'll answer it without her. Wait a minute, I was just thinking that.
Some of that is marriage.
Yeah.
My spouse and I don't even have words anymore. It's a series of caveman grunts. We finish each other's sentences. I will have a song stuck in my head. He'll start singing it and vice versa. And part of that is because over time, your energies, your auras, they converge. You spend so much time together. If you sleep in the same bed energetically, you're in each other's fields.
So is your husband supportive of you being a medium?
Immensely.
Yeah, I've seen like other mediums. It can be difficult, you know.
My first marriage was not. Actually, he mocked me and he would shame me. He would just all kinds of things. But I also wasn't okay with it then either. I was trying to suppress it that whole time. So when I came into this marriage, I said, okay, all cards on the table. I'm weird. I'm sorry. I can't help it. These are the things that are going to happen. I can't stop it. Just comfort me. And he took that to heart and he listened. And so he's always been very supportive. And then we've been in enough situations and scenarios together that when I say something like, oh, stop at that light, don't go through. And then another car flies through. He's had enough of those times to realize like, she said something, I'm going to listen.
You go in public and you start feeling about somebody, you have to, like Teresa Caputo. I know we talked about her, and you kind of disagreed that she shouldn't do that in public. But I was wondering if that happened to you where it's so strong, you have to say, whoa.
It used to.
Yeah.
It used to, particularly. So it happened in childhood all the way up until late 20s when I started to really get control of it. And the moment that I realized I was empathic and that I was feeling things that weren't mine, I was probably, I think about 21 or 22. I was working in a money mart as a teller, and I was having a really good day. I was having fun. I was enjoying my coworkers. There was music. We were joking around with the customers, just having a good time. It was Calgary, Alberta, in the middle of the winter. And the winters in Calgary, Alberta can be very, very dry.
Right.
And so when we get people who come from other countries, particularly Asians, because they have like a wider nose, that dry air really affects them when they first move over from other places. And I remember all of a sudden I just wasn't feeling right. I started feeling like I was going to have an anxiety or a panic attack, like my heart was beating and I couldn't breathe. And I was like, what is wrong with me? How do you go from being perfectly happy to this? Am I going crazy? Have I lost it? And it took about a solid 5 minutes. And then a man came into the store and he doubled over in the store. And he was exhibiting every single symptom I was feeling in my body. And at that moment, I was looking at him and I was like, this is you. I'm feeling you. this isn't mine. I'm not crazy. How did I feel that? And that was the moment when I realized, holy crap, I'm able to do this.
Wow.
And at that point I did it unconsciously. So it wasn't a choice. And then I had to learn, how do I do it consciously? And then how do I make it stop so that I can live?
That could be a problem, yeah.
But my main challenge...
Self-hypnosis, or have you been hypnotized yourself?
Yeah.
I reach a state where you don't feel your body. You just, you go into that unmanifested state of you are who you are without your body. And it's like, whoa.
There were a series of fortunate events that unfolded for me that I think made me a little more hyper visual than most. So within fantasiacs, which is those people who don't have those inner processing abilities, whether they don't have that inner image or an inner voice or, inner sound. I'm hyper, meaning it's an overdrive. When you tell me to imagine an apple, I'm seeing a full-on video. I could be in an orchard and see it 360 degrees in full color. I can imagine the taste, the sound, the whole bit.
Wow.
And I think part of what set that up for me was a few things. So my paternal grandmother died when I was 6 months old, but I got to meet her as a result of her passing.
Cool.
So I was always open from a very young age. But because she was so present in my life, she would show me things, she would guide me. I never closed. I just never told anybody. Most children close off between the ages of 6 and 8. They realize that it's different or it's uncomfortable, and they shut their abilities down to be accepted in society.
Cool.
And that's most of us.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't do that. I just stayed quiet and shy and uncomfortable. And so from there, I was also lucky in that I had my maternal grandmother who also guided me kind of unconsciously. She modeled how to deal with things that I didn't have words for, and we never spoke about it. But she showed me how to be assertive with entities and how when there are lower vibrational things, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows over there. There's other stuff.
I think women that pass it on are more open than men. I mean, if your grandmother had it, you might have it, and your daughter might have it. And, wow.
Yeah. She never really talked about it, and I didn't put it together until later.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was that. And then also I was part of a pilot project in school that introduced meditation and mindfulness. So instead of recess, we would actually go into the gym. We would have mats and we would practice progressive muscle relaxation and quieting the mind. And so I think a big part of that is when we allow children to be bored, they develop those inner senses and they begin to explore. So as a little kid, I was really weird. I would do things like lay on the ground and pretend to be dead. I would just ignore the body. Pretend it's dead. What is that like? And then I would see if I could even create like inner silence, no dialogue. So and then I would just drift into different realms.
Evil into me. I mean, do you think there's evil entities out there, or do you think that's just negative?
I know. It's not a think thing. And I didn't go looking for them. They found me. And so now I actually do a lot of spirit releasement. That's a big part of what I do as a hypnotist now. And as a medium as well, a big part of my role within mediumship is crossing over those who've had difficulty. And there are different kinds of mediums. So there are like the James von Prague mediums who only see the higher vibration loving souls coming through for their loved ones.
Right.
He doesn't see the lower vibration things. There are the lower vibration mediums who go into houses and clear them of traumatic imprints or souls that are remaining or non-human souls that might be interfering because they like that energy.
The first person I seen on TV was John Edwards. I
loved him. Yeah. He was actually one of the first mediumship books I read.
Yeah, I read his book too after I talked to you. But I don't know if he was real or not. I mean, you see Teresa Caputo or Tyler Henry, and these people are boom, 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 boom. This happens. Yeah. There's no doubt. But John Edwards was kind of like the ones that everybody say, well, they're doing a cold reading. I bet you hear that a lot, though.
Not as much. And I don't know if it's because I think people know me. They know I'm authentic. They can sense that I have a very soft, loving energy. Yeah. So I don't get that very often. I also don't even really fully know what cold reading is. Like I've never learned it. I don't know how to do it.
There's somebody out there there's somebody down with the letter J. Oh yeah. But that's interesting.
Tyler Henry, I adore. He is one of the few that I love, and what I love about him is he goes in blind, and that's how I prefer to go in too. I don't want to know anything because I'll just get in my own way.
Teresa Caputo is the one that I've been following. Alison DeBron.
I love Allison as
Yeah,
well.
she was really good too. Yeah,
My only challenge with Teresa is I find it lacks boundaries.
yeah. We're talking about that in Vegas, weren't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
And she goes up to stranger, but I think it kind of freaks him up. She feels compelled. How could you not share that?
I could be that way too, but I also don't want to be the person who goes into a grocery store, starts reading someone, puts them in a highly emotional state, and then has them leave and they have to go out in the world and drive. I don't want to be responsible for them being dysregulated and then having an accident. Or can it be a healing thing? Absolutely. If she feels compelled, great. Offer them a business card, set an appointment time. Good Lord. Make it so they have time to set themselves up with the proper supports to have that healing happen.
Okay.
Don't just dysregulate people and then send them out in the world. I have a hard time with that. So there are some mediums who developed, like I did, in early childhood with just being very open, having the right things in place. And then there are some who develop through trauma, and I kind of developed that way too. Now, when a medium develops through trauma, and I can't diagnose, but oftentimes it comes with codependent type patterns. It comes with that people pleasing. It comes with lack of boundaries and enmeshment. And it makes for a very powerful medium because they can go right into someone else's energy fields entirely unconsciously and pull out really big, important things. But again, lack of boundaries, that comes with some cons as well. That comes with some side effects, some challenges.
What's interesting, what started my career off was when I was 16 years old. My cousin and I were both magicians, and we were doing Houdini escapes. And I had my pants on. He tied the rope through the belt loop of my new jeans, tied it to the fence. And we're both tricksters. He got the hose, started spraying me with the hose, and I just ran. So when I ran, it should have broke the loop of my belt, but it didn't. So that got me thinking how energy aligns, and then I can't talk right. Paranormal, which got me into everything paranormal. Spontaneous human combustion. The X-Files came out. I know all about that because from 16 to 21. Then the one that got me in hypnosis, because I was studying paranormal, was James Szeles Cybernetics. I remember Jim was a big fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the first books I read, and it introduced me to hypnosis.
It's a good book.
And I was a street performer at Pier 39, and a friend of mine gave me a self-hypnosis tape. And I loved it. Oh, just like that. So, but had I not been into paranormal as a kid, I wouldn't have gotten into hypnosis.
Isn't that wild how we always end up where we're supposed to be, even if we don't have the words for it.
And back in the day, even when I got started with hypnosis in 78, 79, if you wanted to get a book on self-hypnosis, it was in the paranormal section with the city of Atlantis and it wasn't really taken seriously.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. But, I think, especially with the internet, as far as the internet is concerned, hypnothoughts has a big motivational factor because hypnothoughts allow these people to have conversations in moderated rooms. Because Internet Relay Chat came out and hypnosis room, and somebody would spam it. AOL would have a hypnosis room, and a troll would get on it, and they have to close that down. But hypnothoughts in the early days, their website was the only moderated website where you could talk and you wouldn't get attacked. So that allowed a lot of people to kind of get together. So
I didn't know that was part of the origins. That's really cool.
A lot of people don't because they think you could always have these civil conversations. That's one of their big claims to fame. And they put out tons of money to build this website and put out these servers and stuff like that. And look what it became. It's an open forum. Yeah. But in the early days, stage hypnosis and hypnotherapists hated each other. Well, hypnotherapists hated stage hypnotists.
Yeah.
Here's the interesting, I think. Here's my take on it. After 44 years, what amazes me is how pliable the mind is. What you can do and how open you are. I mean, you can say almost literally anything to people and they'll respond. And being a stage hypnotist, I do the really amazing things with people like, they'll think I'm Brad Pitt or they'll think I'm Jennifer Lopez, or really, it's such a pliable state of mind that when you realize how powerful it is, and how beneficial it can be. And that's my big takeaway after 44 years. I'm just blown away by how the mind works.
But our friend Jim Kellner really had it right. Stage hypnotists and clinical hypnotists and spiritual or transpersonal hypnotists, the thing we all have in common is we can help each other.
Yeah.
And we're all doing good at the end of the day.
I remember I was talking to, because I seen Jim on one of your podcasts. When he was first getting started, he goes, "Well, how do I become successful?" Well, there is no trick. You just put out there. You keep doing what you're doing, and if this doesn't work, this works. This doesn't work, this works. And it's just a matter of trying. And he said to me, because when he started really expanding his business, he was getting good Google reviews. He goes, "I'm getting good Google reviews, but I don't know why." I said, "Well, Jim, your job is to find out why. Keep going." But there is no trick to it. It's a matter of you do the work. When I first got started, before the internet came out, and what kind of messed me up a little bit is I'm self-taught. So I never knew the hypnosis market. So from 89 to like 92, I was lucky. I was in San Francisco, and I saw all kinds of corporate shows. I did nothing but corporate shows for like 10 years. And then in 92, I contacted the high school. I said, would you like a hypnotist? I'll do your grad night. All I want is like a hotel room and gas money. And so, because I didn't know stage hypnotist was a big market for them. But for me, I'm probably the best known person that hasn't done a lot of public shows. All my shows are private. And then in 92, I got into grad nights, and then 98, I got into the fair market. But my bread and butter was corporate. Always been corporate. So, and my claim to fame is my hypnosis, my Szeles hypnosis poster. 100 years from now, people will know that a man named Szeles was doing hypnosis. It's kind of an interesting career because people, like you think of Terry Stokes, and everybody's seen Terry's shows, but you think of my shows, and not as, unless you've actually been to a private show, that you really haven't seen me. Yeah. I don't know if that makes any sense.
How did you self-teach?
I bought a book. I bought Orman McGill's Professional Stage Hypnosis.
Orman McGill, of course.
I did it word for word, and the first couple of years I did it, I don't know what the words meant, of course. I knew by repeating the words, they would go into. And then as I got into it more and more, it kind of tailored my induction. But the first couple of years, I because I came from a street performing background and a magic background, I almost have to stop myself from laughing when I was doing the induction, because I thought, they'll let me put them under, so they know who's putting them under. It's kind of interesting,
I do laugh during hypnosis every single day because there's always something that happens, even within the therapeutic setting when we're working on heavy stuff, we're working on childhood trauma, we're doing all those kinds of things. Even earlier today, I worked with somebody, and he just had this moment where an inner child part came forward and was holding a rock. That was a self-defense. And so I just burst out laughing. I was like, wow, that's kind of a caveman tool, isn't it? This is not really helpful, is it? Do you still want to hold on to that? And he's like, no, I'm going to let the rock go.
I did therapy for my first couple of years until my shows took off.
You did?
It wasn't for me. I had come from an entertainment background, and to listen to people sit there and bitch, it wasn't my thing, So as soon as I was able to just make my living off my shows, I quit doing therapy, but I still do it for my friends. When I was at a couple comedy clubs, I do it for the owners and stuff like that. And I'm licensed hypnotherapist in America and Australia, both, but
wow.
I just do it as a favor.
What did you love most about it?
It's just a powerful tool. I did this comedy club for 3 times in Iowa. I had gastric bypass, and the guy was going to have the gastric bypass, and he couldn't quit smoking. They weren't going to do the operation unless he quit smoking, and he had tried everything. So the second time I'm there, he was convinced I could help him.
Yeah.
So took him to the back room, made up some words. You're smart and stronger than cigarettes, and you got the willpower. But to the belief that I could help them, that's all I needed.
Yeah. And sometimes when they're ready, they're just really, really ready. I bet that was a really short session.
Yeah, they convince themselves. Here's why I thought it was stage. People think that I can do something that hypnotherapists can't because they see what I do on stage. But it's, that's not really the case. I mean, people go on stage for the attention. That's exactly why they go on stage. They want the attention, and they're giving the hypnotist the permission to give them that attention they need.
I think it's more than that. I think because now I'm not a connoisseur by any means, but going into hypnosis conferences, I am seeing more and more shows. I had wanted to see Jim, and I didn't get the chance, but I am seeing more and more shows. And the thing that I'm realizing is a lot of people who do go up are actually very introverted. Sometimes even the stage hypnotists themselves are very introverted. And I don't think it's just about attention. I think, and that really speaks, that's the testimony for me for hypnosis. The fact that someone who's so shy and timid and introverted can go and be put into a state where they're able to be more authentic and fun and expressionate and push themselves in ways where they couldn't in regular life.
The introverts are the fun ones.
That's what they say, isn't it? Watch out for the quiet ones.
Yeah, you never know that. That's another thing. I don't pretest. A lot of hypnotists would do pretest, but I found that just because you don't respond to a pretest doesn't mean some of the best people I've had on stage were people that didn't respond to the fingers locking and this. Yeah, I always tell people that basic hypnosis show is so easy to do. It's the opening, it's the induction, and boom. I mean, I could teach somebody how to do that in 1 hour, and they can do a show. The real art is when you become the conductor. You got all these people on stage, and it's your job to bring this out in people. That's where the performance comes in. And I tell people, if you be a stage hypnotist, you have to have a big personality. I don't care who you're off stage, but on stage you have to be that real boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Like my attitude. My attitude is, hey, we're gonna have a good time. Everybody not gonna hurt. Have a good time. Go along with it.
Isn't that also a form of mediumship? Aren't you channeling at that moment? Are you not?
I'm stepping into a role. I'm off stage.
How is that different?
I never thought about it that way, but it really is the same.
The creativity that has to come through you, the little scenarios that you set up, I know for a lot of people they're pre-planned, but I'm guessing there are people like me where it's not pre-planned and you just open yourself up to source and you allow it to move through you.
I have a list of about 100 routines that I take with me, and I never pre-plan it because you don't know. Yeah, I just okay. Well, this person's good. Okay, they're my person. Yeah.
There's your clairsentience in effect.
Yeah, and I'll be silly. Here's another thing. A lot of stage hypnotists will say, "I'll do my show," because my wife comes with me a lot.
Yeah.
And we'll be driving home, and I'll go, "Oh, that was terrible. That show sucked." And they go, "No. They were laughing the whole show." Well, I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
You're so focused on that moment, you kind of tune out the audience. Because you got their safety on stage, and you've got to think, okay, well, I'm doing this routine with this person. Who am I going to do next while this routine's going on? It's kind of like that. You're so involved in it, you forget. It's kind of interesting. I hear a lot of stage hypnotists say the same thing, that they don't realize the show's funny or not funny until afterwards.
Yeah, because you're just in the zone. I mean, so at that moment you're in trance as well. And that's the thing about trance. We're entirely focused on whatever it is we're focused on.
Now, what's interesting is I'm reading, I've been reading I've read the last couple of years. I'm reading Control is the Power of Now.
Yeah.
Have you ever read that?
I did. After a huge spiritual awakening. And it was like the most shocking thing that happened in my life. And I was looking for words to explain what had happened. And that book is the only one that made sense. And he spoke about it in such a way of it's like, oh, now I get it. That's exactly it.
Isn't that amazing? It's such an obvious, easy point, but it's like so hard to grasp.
Not easy.
Yeah. Yeah, easy once you master it, but yeah.
It takes practice, but if you can make some of those neural pathways and what fires together wires together, then it gets easier with a little bit of muscling through it first.
He's probably the closest I've got to a spiritual advisor. The New Earth was the first book I ever read from him. I read The New Earth, and I was like, well, somebody else thinks the same way I do.
Yeah.
And it was kind of because, what was the one where The Secret was really big at the time. And he went beyond The Secret. Well, why does The Secret work? And to me, that explained it. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, I love that you had that. I didn't know. I wouldn't have guessed. I mean, again, I didn't research you or anything before we'd met. I typically prefer not to know, so I really had no idea what your life was like or what kind of experiences or interests you had at all. So that's really fun to hear.
Oh, I'm a diehard atheist, so I have to have some kind of spiritual connection.
How does that? So you're a diehard atheist. How were you able to receive a reading and not be questioning that whole time?
Because it's not you're not talking to angels. You're talking to people. Like
Oh, I do though.
When we cross over, I'm sure if we cross over and you go to somebody, they can think you're an angel, because it's pure love.
Mm.
It is who we are at the very core of our essence. Is we are that pure energy, which is pure love, which is pure, and that makes up the universe.
We don't always remember it, but we are. Yes.
Yeah.
But I do actually encounter angels and I do work with them. And a lot of times they do come into my holistic centers, into my sessions. And it makes
And
for some really high vibrational work, but they've never been incarnated on Earth. They've never had human lives.
I don't see them as angels. I just see them as pure spirits.
Now,
Yeah.
depending on how far you go down the rabbit hole, you might find out that they're actually ETs.
I believe everything's connected. Pantheism, everything's connected. Everything's defined. We make up. There's the molecules that make up the rocks and the stones and the trees are all the same molecules that make up our bodies. So there's the presence in the rock because the molecules make up the rock.
Well, that's not atheism.
Well,
So you do believe in something.
I believe in a higher power. There's a natural order to the universe, but it's no reason we have to understand. To exist on this planet, there's no reason we have to know why. Yeah. All we're put here for is to have fun. Nobody's ever said, God came from heaven and said everybody all at once, these are the rules. Right. It's man's made rules. It's just, you got this beautiful planet. We created it. We're going to enjoy it for a couple of years and we'll move on. And that's all. Don't go getting too much into, God. And then you get to worship him and then you get bad and good.
Right. Yeah, I think that's where we get lost. Then we start having dogma and structuring things into religions and rules, and then it just gets too man-made and complicated.
Yeah, because the teachings of Jesus are like pure metaphysical, but then you get that dogma attached to it, and that's where it goes on the rabbit hole with every religion. Buddhism, for me, it's interesting, because a lot of my family members are diehard born-again Christians, and if you don't get baptized, you're going to go to hell. There's no hell. The whole concept of, well, you're born into sin. Well, wait a minute, I wasn't born in anything. Or what was Eve's curse? Eve ate from the tree of knowledge. Well, wait a minute, if that's not, I don't know, you ate from the tree of knowledge? When is knowledge bad?
Yeah.
That's just my belief. Get off track here, but.
Yeah. Have you read any of the Dolores Cannon books?
I don't think I have.
I think you would enjoy them. Where do I want to send you first? There's Between Death and Life is quite good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy that one. And that's her perspective through hypnotherapy and her style of past life regression. She does a style, or she did, I should say, she died in 2014. She did a style of past life regression called QHHT, Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. I did actually go and get trained. And so she goes through past life regression, but then she found a way to bring in higher consciousness to come into channel through the client so that they can get their questions answered about their life, their lessons, heal the body, make any changes that they want to make. And it's just really profound and powerful to work with. And so through that, she wrote something like 28 books.
Whoa.
The woman has passed. Books are still coming out and being published.
You ever study Edgar Cayce?
Yes.
Was he amazing?
And I do Akashic record work as well.
Yeah.
It's really
here's what amazes me with hypnosis is reality isn't really real. Yeah. Reality is what you think it is. And in the early days, if I touched you on the arm with a pencil and told you it's red hot, a water blister would form.
Yeah.
But as I got into it, like the last couple of years, friends of mine that teach blind seeing, when they blindfold you, you can see perfectly. You can drive with blindfolds on because your mind tells your brain what to see. those kind of things.
I've heard it, and I've seen. Do you ever watch Gaia?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen a company that was promoting that, and then I don't know for sure, but I think they were found to be fraudulent. I don't know how they were doing it, but they had kids like
No,
playing
this is
soccer with blindfolds on.
no,
Um,
this is very real, and I've got friends that teach that. And I got friends that teach remote viewing.
I'd be fascinated to learn about the blind seeing. That would be just because I
I'll
was
show you.
curious.
I'll
Yeah,
show you his email because he teaches all this,
yeah.
and I've seen people. It's real. It's very real, and it's just you think your mind has to see things, but it's the other way around.
So how does that different from clairvoyance, though?
Well, clairvoyance, it's probably pretty close to it.
That's my thought. Is it has to be the same. There was this.
Clairvoyance take it to the next level. Yeah.
Yeah. There was this one time. I was probably about I think about 8 years old, and I used to be part of a day camp, and we would always end the day off in the park with like the big sandbox. One day I got really distracted, busy digging. I had taken my shoes off, and somebody else buried my shoes. I had to go home barefoot. And about a year later, my brother took me to the park, and he was on the phone with his girlfriend, and he wanted to have a conversation without me eavesdropping. And so he bet me that I could, if I found my shoes, he'd buy me a new pair. In that moment, I took a deep breath and I got curious, which is what most mediums and psychics need to do. We get curious. Huh, where are they? As I had that thought, the image popped into my mind. I dug exactly where they were, and he just about pooped his pants when I pulled up the shoes that had been in the sandbox for a year, and he had to make good and buy me new shoes. So how is that different from mind seeing or remote viewing? I think it might all be in the same vein.
They kind of with remote viewing, they give you a location, and the same thing. Yeah, it's just all everything's connected. You're everywhere and you're nowhere at once. If that makes any sense, yeah. It's just for me. It shows me the stage hypnosis shows me how pliable the mind is, and how you can really disturb somebody. Just not disturb, but just change their perspective, change their reality.
So for me, hypnosis is the vehicle that we can get all of the abilities and things open.
And with hypnosis, it's easier to go into the unmanifested state, as Eckhart Tolle would say. I used to do that because I still use self-hypnosis almost every day.
You do?
Yeah, I used to go down there. It was such a pleasant state where you're not aware of your body and you're not aware of time. And it's just a calming thing. Yeah.
Do you find that when you practice self-hypnosis that all of your inner senses are available?
Yeah. Well, I do it now. I've been doing it so I can go into it like that. Like you could probably put yourself into a reading. I can put myself into self-hypnosis. And within a minute, I can go down that real, you're not aware of your body state. Yeah.
So that moment you realize you were there, what is stopping you from calling forward your loved ones in spirit?
Because I never really thought about it until I ran into you. I mean, since I've talked to you, I've been more open when I feel people around me.
Yeah. So let's go into that a little bit. Let's talk about your experience with the reading, and then I want to hear about the experience that you had after.
Well, like I had unfinished business with 3 people.
Yeah.
And the Sierra Hotel I spent many, many times there. With a friend of mine, my cousin, because he performed there.
Yeah.
So it was important. Just being there kind of triggered me. And
what is it about that place that made it different for you?
Well, he crossed over. I hadn't talked to him in 16 years. So we left on very angry terms. I had another friend of mine, John, who with, and he died. Just like that. I was the last person to see him alive. I was telling me I had to die. And then my mom. So I have 3 people that are really kind of didn't get that closure with.
Yeah.
And just talking to you, and whether you get emotional, I'm sorry.
Whether it was take your time.
Whether it was, I didn't. Okay, let's play devil's advocate. Whether it was them or not, it gave me the closure I needed.
Yeah.
And for me, that changed my life.
Yeah.
I walked. Here's an interesting thing. You did that reading, and I walked down to the casino floor, and I had like $6. So I hit the crap tables, and it was like $5 minimum. you could put $2 bets on the sides. So I bet my $2 bets, my $6 were gone. And the young lady and her husband next to me, she goes, want to play some more roulette? I said, I got no more money. She said, I'll beg you. I won like $100. And I go, here's your money back. She said, I don't want it, That was kind of interesting. It was like,
Yeah. Does that feel like a validation of everything that you had just been through? As you just had that reading, you were connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much connected. That reading just gave me some.
I'm trying to remember
with my friend John.
Yeah.
Your validation what was it? Because if that didn't happen, I could always sit there and go, well, you know what? Maybe that was my mom, or maybe that was my cousin, but maybe I was just want to hear what I want to hear. But until you did that validation, it was like, okay, it's real.
There was part of that reading, and it's faded from me now, and I don't always remember them a long time after. Wasn't there a number or a color that was important for you, and I didn't know why? And it was just
you kept on saying the number 69, 69, 69.
Did that ever unfold? Did it ever become anything?
I lost $20 playing 6 and 9 in the roll. Well, so you were playing a joke with me. So yeah.
Well, I said important. I didn't say helpful.
It's like, look, I got some $20. That was right in,
Yeah. The fun thing about that reading, the parts that I do remember, was I felt like I was seeing your mother's life through her eyes.
Yeah.
And she was showing me her inner experience and how she saw you, how she saw the other people in your family, and just what she was feeling on a day-to-day basis.
And I kind of figured that's what she said validated what I kind of thought.
Yeah.
From what we had known before that of her life, it was pretty intense. And yeah.
And then also you had a grandmother come through. There were flashes of you cooking or baking, or what you were making something together.
See, very early on, I don't remember, because when I was like 8, things happened in my life that kind of blacked me out for the rest of my life till I was like 14.
Yeah.
And I don't remember that. I pick up when I'm like 14 years old. And that's my first real clear memories of we moved to a different house and everything. But yeah. Just the events when I was 8 years old just kind of shut me down completely.
Was that your sister that was able to find a photo of the two of you baking, or she remembered it?
She remembered, yeah.
Yeah, so somebody was able to validate it, and that's the thing.
After the reading, I recorded it, like you said, because a lot of things didn't make sense. But after I recorded and played it back, they go, oh, yeah, this is this, and this is this, and this is this,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's what I said. As a medium, it's super vulnerable, and you just have to trust and put yourself out of the way and just be willing to receive and do your best to maybe not interpret the things you're seeing, but just say them and trust that you're going to be guided to the right words that make sense. And sometimes I use words that I don't use in daily life. It's like that's not part of my dialect even. But it is always something that spirit kind of guides us towards, and it always makes sense. And I can count like so many times when I've done readings for people, and there are cultural things that I can't understand because it's not my upbringing, not my background.
Yeah.
But as I'm telling, someone that her grandfather is coming through and they're making pizza together, and I'm like, but why is the pizza square? She's like, well, we're Italian, that's how we do it. It's like, well, I wouldn't know.
I sent you a message the other day because I was driving to the gym and I got a message. I thought, I asked you, do you think this was really it? So I'm open to that. And after talking to you, I'm open when I feel these things, when I feel people around me. I don't close off, say, it's just me remembering them, That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, but in that moment when we're remembering, are we not in a light hypnotic trance?
I always go to trance when I drive a lot of times anyhow.
I don't recommend that.
Hypnosis is very common, where you just drive through a town and you don't remember it, but you stop at all the stop signs and
Just for the audience, we're not recommending or endorsing that today.
I recommend blind driving, put blindfolds on. That's what I want to try,
Let me know where you are, and I'm not going to be there that day.
I sent you the guy's email too. He's a real interesting guy. He's a friend of mine on Facebook. He teaches that. He teaches remote viewing. And him and his wife are really into the the more interesting aspects of life, as I call it.
It is. It is more interesting. It's a whole lot more fun, a lot more satisfying too. Goodness, I don't know what it would be like to go through life without having the extra sensory, because it's kept me safe. It's helped me so many times. It's helped so many other people.
Here's what's interesting about my instinct, because I always rely on my instinct 100%.
Yeah.
So I dated my wife. I knew she was the one. And
How did you know? What was it? Was it like?
I just knew. It's like, you just feel like the sun's going to come tomorrow. That's how you know.
Yeah.
We broke up and we didn't see each other for 7 years.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, because my instinct got that wrong, and then we got back together. It was right on. But that was the only time I really questioned my instinct, because how could it be that wrong?
That just knowing, that is your claircognizance. That's another way that your psychic abilities are active, but it's more of a very factual level. It's very matter of fact. And I don't know how I know, I just know.
And I'm an empath, but because I'll just walk up to people, you'll just get overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. You feel physically or just emotionally?
Emotionally, yeah.
Okay, so there are emotional empaths. There are also physical empaths.
Yeah. You get the feeling of, whoa, good or bad or right or wrong. It's almost like you can read their mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can pick up on the subtle energies in their fields.
Yeah. Because everything's energy. Everything comes in. You couldn't invent a time machine, go back in time, but you could invent a machine that could read that energy from the past. That's how you could relive it. Because everything's energy.
Yeah. That's right.
Think in terms of thoughts and vibrations and
frequency.
Everything's vibrating. Nothing's solid. It's basic physics. Everything's molecules, atoms vibrating back and forth. So how real is those energies? Even the energy from the rock has to go off some kind of energy.
Yeah.
It's just tapping into it.
So we did the reading, and that was profoundly cathartic for you. There was a lot of catharsis that happened over the next, I would say, maybe even a week or two after the reading. And then that's since opened up your world quite a bit more. And now you're a lot more in tune. What things have happened since then? What experiences have you had?
Well, I was driving to the gym, and my mom sat next to me. And I was talking to her. But I wasn't sure if that was real or not,
What did you feel first? Let's actually go through it. I'll name off the abilities as they were happening.
She sat down next to me, and she said she didn't tell my dad what happened.
So she said, meaning you heard it.
She didn't tell my dad what happened to her, what she did to me. She said she's afraid if she did, he would leave her.
Yeah.
And that made sense.
Yeah.
Because he was her life. And, she had a real tragic life, and he was her lifeline. But I thought, well, I didn't ask her. I wasn't thinking about her. It was if she was there, and she said it, and it was like, this is what I wanted to hear. Another one. This is something I wanted to hear. Or was this really her? That's why I sent you the text.
As you had awareness of she sat down, did you feel it or did you see it? Or was it that just knowing?
I felt it.
You felt it. That's your clairsentience.
So I was driving, so I couldn't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we easily go into trance when we're driving. I'm not saying to do it intentionally, but it does happen. And so, of course, you're in that spot. And then, as far as they know, hey, he's available for communication today.
Yeah. Well, when she did cross over the first time, I was living in California. I knew she was sick, and I was driving home, and she came to me. Sat in the car. Got home, she was dead.
Wow. So the car is a frequent place for you.
The car's where I let my guard down.
Yeah.
Because I can concentrate. I concentrate driving to the point where my mind's kind of freed up. So I'm not,
Yeah. Mine is either the bathtub every time.
Yeah.
Because I'm relaxed. I'm relaxed. I'm happy. I'm in the moment. That's all they need, right? Or making art. If I've had a very busy head and then I start doodling, making art, that's enough for me to have a different kind of trance. And then it's like it kind of clears out the gunk and the channels, and then everything can flow, and then I can experience.
It's interesting how emotionally charged these feelings are, because there's a lot of things that have been repressed,
That's for me the key discerning factor on how you know it's a visit. If it
Yeah.
was just a thought in the mind, you wouldn't have that huge emotional reaction. It wouldn't be so palpable.
I think, it's that empath, its ability to emphasize and its ability to connect with, and that's what makes you who you are today.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. I come across the stage as a very likable person. That's the whole basis of my show. People go there because they like me, they trust me. And that a good stage hypnotist can make a good con man, because those two qualities go hand in hand. Somebody that can con people easily, somebody you can trust you first sight, And sometimes if I'm at the supermarket, once you get back there, totally being in the moment, people come up to me and talk to me, strangers.
Oh yeah.
I have a t-shirt on. It doesn't matter what the t-shirt is. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that band. Oh, I've got cats too. They're strangers.
And before you know it, you're hearing their whole life story, and you just had a therapy session in the lineup at the grocery store. That's a key empath trait.
Yeah, I find people feel comfortable around me and open up to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, after 4 years of stage hypnosis, it shows me how reality is very malleable. You have to always, here's what I tell people. Your conscious mind is a keyboard, your subconscious mind is a computer.
Yeah.
And the keyboard just puts in information and the subconscious mind judges it. So you always have to be on guard how your subconscious mind is working. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not always the fact that we store. And that's kind of the big cleanup in therapy when we do it as a therapeutic approach. It's those beliefs we made as little kids.
Well, for me, it's like when I decide to do something, I'll just do it. It's not, can I do it or can I do it? I'll just, it's like, okay, I was a magician for many years, and I got out of it because I went to LA and I spent a year in LA, and I performed at this magic shop in Hollywood Boulevard. And the guy was an old vaudevillian magician. He had this tiny, crappy little magic store on the second floor of Hollywood. He had his pet monkey at home, his old Mercedes, and I thought, I don't want this to be me.
Yeah.
And so I walked in 75, walked away from magic completely. And then in 78, when I moved to San Francisco, they opened a entertainment complex at Pier 39, and I did a street show. I wasn't even looking to do it. I wasn't even looking back into entertainment, and I just auditioned for it, and they hired me. And that got me into hypnosis because somebody gave me a self-hypnosis tape. But
yeah,
so many things had to line up. And the universe had to kind of kick me in the butt to get me where I wanted. And I've always realized that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know how I was talking about like those early sequences on how I kind of lucked out with things?
Yeah, exactly.
One of them was I was going to get diagnosed for ADD. And the psychotherapist, instead of putting me on Ritalin or some kind of medication, which was very much fad at the time, gave me progressive muscle relaxation. I didn't even know it because I had insomnia. And I essentially learned how to train myself to go to sleep. And now I'm asleep within 2 minutes. My husband's super jealous every time.
I used to have insomnia growing up too. I think ADD and insomnia.
Yeah. Well, it's all those things you avoid during the day, and then they catch up to you at night because then you're available, and then it all just wants to unload, right? So the key is to make time for it earlier in the day. But I didn't know that I was given hypnosis as part of therapy until I actually went to train for hypnosis. And it's like, wait a minute, I've been doing this my whole life.
People think a trance is something different than it is. You think you lose control, or people say, "Oh, you can't hypnotize me," but all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. Whether you say it to yourself or I'm saying it to you, you're repeating the words in your ear. And I never challenged somebody when I did the show. So well, I can't be hypnotized. Okay, well, then you can't. For a lot of times they'll sit on the stage, and at the beginning they won't go in there, but towards the end of the show they'll kind of go in there. So hypnosis kind of opened up my perspective on reality and sees that, if people want something to happen, if you can keep that image in your mind long enough, it's going to happen. You control your destiny.
Yeah.
You do that.
So after that experience with your mom in the car, and you finally got to hear those words from her directly, what did that open up for you?
Well, it made sense. To me, it made perfect sense. I mean, he was her life. Yeah. My dad was her life. She wasn't well educated, and she had a tough life, so I'm sure she lived terrified of him abandoning her. But okay. Yeah, so that made perfect sense.
And so when you compare that experience to having a reading, which was the more valuable? The
I wouldn't have
experience.
the experience. I didn't have the reading. The two go hand in
Fair
hand.
enough. Fair
The reading,
enough. You needed the reading to open you up.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
for me, it's the one-on-one experience. It's the direct experience that we have ourselves that is the more profound.
Now when I feel people around me, I say, "Oh, hey, how you doing, John? Or,
Yeah.
how you doing, so-and-so?" It's like, "Oh, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by." Jim, when the day Jim crossed over, a Christmas card that was tacked under our fireplace fell off. And he knows I'm not really religious. And it was a Jesus card. So, yeah, Jim's come down to see us,
Sense of humor intact, very, very
Yeah.
much. He also knocked something over at Nora Nopal's house. He didn't knock anything over here, but it took me a few days to even pick up on him. I didn't sense him at all at first, and I think I was just in such a shock. And then in grief. And it took me a hot minute to really move through that. That is a huge block for mediumship, is that grief and shock.
I was sad, I was shocked, but I know he's still there. When people, that's why I make peace with people. When people cross over, they're still there. Just you can't see them, and you'll physically see them soon enough anyhow. But they're still there for you. So Jim's still there. It's just you can't see him.
The
It
best.
was his time. For whatever reason, it was his time, and he had other things to do in his life, and he took his life as far as he could go. For whatever reason, I believe that you're born with a purpose. You're born with a life's purpose. You choose that purpose, and if you can do it, fine. If you can't, keep doing it.
And man, did he make the most of it. He did so much.
Yeah.
I don't know if he realized the impact he had. When I had encountered him after he passed, that was one of the things of, oh, I didn't realize I was making an impact, just not in the way that I thought it was going to be. It was different. But he did finally reach contentment and joy with it.
He's a genuine person in a field where a lot of these people aren't genuine. Yeah. And that's what I think people picked off about him, He wasn't trying to gain you. He wasn't trying to, he was just, if he could help you, he could help you.
Yeah.
And when we were in Vegas, he got me to do some street performing, because he just wanted to show me, he was so happy I was doing it with him. I thought, well, that's kind of cool, I always give him a hard time. I always say, if you're good at something, you never do it for free. And I used to tease him about that, When you're good at something, you never do it for free.
Yeah.
I came from a different generation where, you didn't do street hypnosis. And,
But I think he also did things for enjoyment, He loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just loved being around people.
Yeah.
He loved connecting with people. Yeah.
Goodness.
I feel like this has been a therapy session.
Oh, this is nothing. This is nothing. How are you doing on time? We've had such a great conversation, but it's gone by so fast.
I'm retired, so I've got all day till the end of the month. It's a marathon, huh?
Well, if you're open, I'd love to keep talking.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And so, have you had more experiences since the car? What else has unfolded?
No, I think it was just last week. But before that, I felt my wife's mom's energy quite a bit, because her and I connected really good, which is interesting. John Lett, my friend that you knew how he died, he's always around. Well, when my wife heard the reading you gave us, we go, we knew John would come through. He's like the Jim Kellner in our life, one of those kind of people,
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, hey John, how you doing? But the other John wasn't too sure. The other John had, we parted on bad terms, and
it doesn't matter. After they get to a certain point, the ego starts to dissolve. Now, the personality does stay intact. So what I would say is put yourself in hypnosis, get to that sweet spot that you usually get, and begin to do what they call making a mind castle, or make a continual space that maintains a certain vibration. For most of my mediums, I teach them to make a garden. And the garden usually has a small pond with some birds and a nice big willow tree. Sometimes the tree changes based on the client. It's wild. It just organically happens. And there's usually a bench there. And so then you invite them to the bench, and then you can call on a higher power. And that's the thing. So with mediumship, we don't always just have to be waiting and hoping that they're going to come around. We can actually make the intentional high vibration connection and say, hey, I have so-and-so here for you. Please come through. Please come connect.
Well, it's interesting. I had asked my wife's mom to help my mom.
Yeah.
Because she was kind of, so that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. And when we make those requests, then they have the energy. They're more able to show up for us, but we have to ask for that help because we have free will and they can't impinge on free will. So we have to ask.
It's interesting how the reading brought out the emotions. I mean, well, I'm this way anyhow. I repress a lot of my emotions anyhow, but it is what it is. I mean, you have to have points to survive sometimes,
Yeah. For a little while, it's a good strategy for a little while.
Yeah. They're still there, but
well,
it's kind of cool.
We can talk about that later if you'd like to.
Yeah. I thought, if I were you, I would do as many readings as I could. Because it's like you have such a powerful power. You give something closure that they can't ever have.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you could go to therapy the rest of your life and it wouldn't do you any good. Or an hour with you or a session with you could change people's lives.
But I'd rather have them have it themselves. I would rather guide them through a session. They have their own experience and then they start to use their abilities because then it becomes something they can do every single day. You do hypnosis every single day. That's every single day. You could choose a different loved one to connect with and say, hey, come give me a message today. What do you want me to know today? What's something I can do to heal myself today? Now, if you don't like the way that person lived their life, don't ask them for life advice. You don't want the same outcomes, right? But if it's someone you admired or looked up to or had a certain gift with something, you can ask them for help. They'll come through.
I never thought that way. Mm-hmm. I think it's important to start your day off with positive affirmations. You guys sit there and say, "Well, I'm so lucky I'm able to walk. I'm to feed myself, or have a house over my head, or these are because otherwise people get the mindset of, well, poor man, how come this happened to me?" And no, you can't move forward unless you're grateful for what you have.
Yeah,
practice gratitude.
Got to be looking for the good stuff all the time. So, what would it take for you to add 2 minutes onto your self-hypnosis session tomorrow morning?
I think I'll try it. I never really thought of doing that until just now. I'm always open to do things,
Yeah.
Always looking at things.
Are you open to a couple of tips?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
So a couple of tips. Take nice, long, slow, deep breaths. Right. The longer, slower exhale is very, very important because your nervous system has a huge factor. And so when a lot of people are having a mediumship experience, the first thing they do is they tense up, they feel a little fear, and then they go, and they gasp. And right then they signal to the body that they're not safe. And so if the body feels not safe, it no longer has those resources to be playing with loved ones in spirit. It pulls those resources back to say, okay, now we got to go into fight or to flight or get ready to collapse. And so all of the energy starts to move very differently. So if you can take nice, long, slow, deep breaths as you begin hypnosis, or you start to get to that point, or as communication organically happens, just spontaneously, deep breathe slowly first. Next, it's a conversation. Have intention that you're going to only receive the highest and best part of that person, and then have a conversation. So then everything is communication. And what's really fun is you could, next time Mom or Jim pops in, you can say, hey, show me how you're spending your time now. And they'll show you the other side of the things that they're doing.
What if you see fire and brimstone?
No. Well, so the reason I mentioned Dolores Cannon for you before is because there actually have been people who've gone into hypnosis and they had an experience of hell. And what they learned was hell is not real, but because they had that expectation for themselves, that's where they went in their afterlife until they were ready to stop self-punishing.
I never really thought about the deep breathing, until I read Eckhart Tolle's Powered Up, because when hypnosis, the first thing I do when I start to do the next on stage is take a deep breath. Hold it, let it out. But breathing, take a deep breath brings you back into the moment. The only way to get to the moment of now is through deep breaths. So you're centering yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm doing this year at Hypno Thoughts. It's my last class. I'm doing what I call psychological convincers to help people on stage. and to kind of get them in that right mindset. And I'm explaining the psychology behind what I do, because my induction starts the minute I hit the stage. And from the stage point of view, there's three groups of people. One is a group of people that absolutely believe hypnosis is fake, no matter what you do. There's people in the middle, and there's people that absolutely believe it's real. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of slowly shifting that view, and I'm getting them compliant to do things. There's a lot of little things, but that's what I'm teaching. This will be my last time at Hypnosis, my last class. And if you're getting into stage hypnosis, it's going to be an interesting class for stage hypnotists. I think.
There's a lot of value even for the non-stage hypnotists. I've learned so many things from Jim, from so many of the other stage hypnotists, and things that I can use within my clinical practice. You guys have skills and ways of applying things that are just very fast. Sometimes instant inductions are great. Doesn't always have to be a progressive muscle relaxation, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot to learn, and you offer so much value. And I'm sad that that's going to be your last one. I know I will go to Hypnothoughts again. I just don't plan to go this year.
I tried to get you a slot. They probably wouldn't give you a slot had you come back. I was talking to Scott. Scott, you got to ask. She's good. She's good.
Okay. So if I come back and I shoot you a message, will you show up that year?
No, I can go one day. I'll do is I'll fly in for that.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I'm in California, so flying over is an hour, 15-minute flight.
Okay. Okay. I can feel okay about that.
The Sahara Hotel.
That sounds amazing. That sounds just amazing.
What interests me is how much the Sahara Hotel changed over the years. Because back then, yeah.
I'd never seen it before, and I'd never been to the Orleans because I came the first year they moved to the Sahara.
Okay. So, New Orleans, I like New Orleans where Hypnothoughts started, so I've always got a soft spot for that. When I was at the Sahara back in the day, I got to meet Steve Wynn there, and a lot of good memories there, and so it was interesting to go back.
Isn't that where the Performing Hypnosis Summit is now? They're in the Orleans.
I think they move it this year to the Rancho something or other.
Oh,
Vegas is expensive.
It is.
I mean, for Scott to move that over to the Sahara, that was an expensive move because they got the Union there where the Orleans doesn't.
Yeah.
The Unions are really strong there. Yeah. Okay. But Hypnothoughts for me was I've never thrown for 44 years. I've never thrown my weight behind anything or anybody except Hypnothoughts.
Yeah.
Because we're on the same page.
Yeah.
They're not there to make money. They're there to promote hypnosis. Down the drain. Let's get all these people together and give them a forum to talk. That's all it's ever been.
Yeah.
And at the heart of Hypnothoughts, that's what it's always will be. And you got to kind of balance that with not such a big conference. That, and you got so many people. I imagine it's hard for them to pick.
I don't know how they do it. I really don't. It's so many people in their genius zone, and it's just so many different interdisciplinary ways of using hypnosis that it's like, oh my goodness, I'd hate to be in that position. They do an amazing job every year.
I had a website, my first website, I had links to stage hypnosis people. And this is 1980, 89, 90, 91. And it was the only place before Yahoo where you could go to my page and see the hypnotists all over the world. And that made people's career. A simple line of text and that. And people had told me that over the years,
Oh, yeah.
And back in the day, the more links you had on your page, the higher up those ratings. So I had hypnosis links and I had entertainment links. And but that particular page launched, like 5 people come up to me and said, you launched my career. So it's just 2 words of text.
What a legacy. That's just so cool that you've had so many experiences and really helped people branch out and made a place for hypnosis on the internet before it was a fad or anything fun. It's just amazing.
Well, yeah, especially in the 70s and 80s, it was very close. Stage hypnotists were teaching people. I was doing shows for USO, and they said in San Francisco, and they said, "Oh, go down to San Diego, big naval. There's a hypnotist, and he's so good." So I drove down there, and I was just getting started, and I sat through his show, and he was embarrassing. He was good, but he was having people on stage. You're a male rabbit, you're a female rabbit, and you're humping on stage. Oh, you got to go to the bathroom so bad, but you're stuck to your chair. But anyhow, I had my little Xerox press kit, and And I said to him, I'm a stage hypnotist. I've heard a lot about. That's all I got out. You're a stage hypnotist. If I were to know that, I'm going to kick you out of the show. You better not use my. We're very close to us. So it was very, very hard to break into.
Yeah.
You didn't have 1,500 people teaching it. So if it wasn't for Robert McGill's book, it was just a mindset. I was going to do it. That's all that mattered. Yeah.
I mean, isn't that the same with our clients too? Isn't that the same with the smoking cessation client and the people who want to overcome trauma? They make that choice first.
It's all So I had that mindset. I'm gonna deal with this. I'm gonna get through it. And the interesting thing is, Andrew Carnegie book, Think and Grow Rich. When the teacher is ready, the student will appear. But that's true. So many times in my life, we stopped and said, "Well, I don't know what to do next." And all of a sudden, somebody will come in my life and say, "Hey, this is how you do the fair market. This is how you do the college circuit." So when you like I said, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. Yeah,
I agree. And when we met at Hypnothoughts that year was the year that Jim and I had planned to kind of exchange. I was going to train him to do mediumship development. This man who was terrified, that was going to be so fun. That was going to be the highlight of my year. And then it just didn't work out. And then we ran out of time. And he was going to train me to certify hypnotists. And it's not that I necessarily wanted to, but it was more of how am I going to train people to do this technique that I do? They're going to have a foundation of hypnosis, and I want to make sure that they're at a good point, And then when he passed, I was like, Jim, what do I do now? Like, I actually asked him, like, what do I do now? And then I kind of put it out of my mind. And then that's when I found the perfect training. So I'm actually, this is my second to last week of ICBCH with Richard Nongar and Jason Lynette taking their professional training so that I can certify people.
Richard Nongar's really good. I like Richard.
I love both of them. They're amazing, and it's perfect. And I know that Jim had a hand in that. I know that he lined that up because at that point I stopped looking.
That wouldn't surprise me. He's just that type of person.
And so at one point I was like, hey, thank you. And he's like, oh yeah, you're welcome. And I'm like, yeah, you would take credit for that either way. He hasn't lost his sense of humor at the least.
It was Christmas Eve, day after Christmas, so that kind of dampened our Christmas over here. I'm sure it did a lot of people, because my wife and Jim were really close, and they kept in touch almost every day and stuff. And it was just like, whoa, it's like, wait a minute, Jim, how could that possibly be? He was healthy,
right? He was actually getting healthier.
Yeah,
I could see him getting healthier. Like he was losing weight, and I was
it was just. I think had it not been Christmas and Christmas Eve when he was sick, he might have went into a walk-in clinic. And I firmly believe it's your time to go. It's your time to go.
Yeah.
And I believe that a lot of times, like, this is my opinion. So, like when children die at an early age, or they die after they're born, it's whatever purpose they're sent here for, it's not going to be able to fulfill it. So.
Or they did fulfill it, and part of it was they had soul contracts to help their parents learn things through those experiences. It's our lives are not always just our own.
But if you take into religion, the thing that I don't like about religion, it teaches you, well, this is your one life. Right. This is that when you're dead, and you're going to get heaven or hell. So people kind of like hoard stuff, and I don't know. I had this friend of mine. He was a Paul McCartney impressionist. And his wife died really early. And he agonized that he wasn't going to get into heaven. I mean, agonized his whole life. And I thought, what a sorry way to live your life,
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a way, he allowed part of himself to die with her then. He wasn't fully living.
Yeah, that's, it's just, that's what bothers me. That people get so, or they try to get too righteous. How righteous is too righteous? Or how good is too good? Yeah. If there is a God, I show my God how I worship in my daily deeds.
Yeah, exactly that.
Thoughts that.
Exactly that. And that's the most powerful thing we can do.
Lead by example.
Yeah. So I can't wait to hear how your self-hypnosis mediumship connection goes tomorrow morning. Who are you planning on connecting with?
That's a good question. Maybe John. Jim, I always feel Jim's around me all the time. I kind of feel like Jim has never really left in that sense, where I still feel him. It's like, okay, if I didn't know he was dead, I would think he's right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't remember my grandparents that much, so I don't remember a whole lot about my grandparents, so I kind of have a hard time connecting with them.
That's a little
So,
tricky, especially if you don't have family to validate. And that's,
yeah.
that's the part of mediumship that I was telling you was kind of vulnerable, because I don't know if anything I'm bringing through is true. I have no idea. That's outside of my control. You make yourself crazy trying to control that. And so you just have to trust that the insights, the impressions that you're having as you're sharing them, that they'll be validated later. Sometimes people come back years later and they're like, this took me a while, but I finally figured it out, or someone told me this piece of the puzzle and now I get it.
There's a couple of things I still haven't figured out. They said in the reading.
Yeah.
That was powerful for me. That was very, very powerful for me.
Yeah.
And like I said, I walked away with peace of mind I hadn't had.
Yeah.
That was worth it right there.
I'm really honored that you could trust me and that I could do that for you. I'm really glad that I was able to help, but I'm more intrigued about how you're growing with it now.
What's interesting for me is that how the whole hypnosis industry has changed, and so many people want to teach stage hypnosis, but they can't make a living off of it. And
right.
Like I said, when I was first Jim got started, because I talked to him in 2016, and he goes, "Well, you're successful, Jim. What's your trick? How did you do it?" I said, "There's no trick, Jim. I put out whatever I had to put out, and what worked. And what didn't work. And when I found something that worked, I found out why. You delve deeper. Why did this work? Why didn't this work?
Yeah.
So I used to, when I first got started, I'd go to the library and take my business cards and put them in hypnosis books in the library, just to have people contact me, and I didn't know about the fair market. And luckily I lived in San Francisco during the tech boom, so I was doing corporate shows left and right all the time. And the USO, I got hooked with the USO early when San Francisco had like 14 military bases. So I did a lot of shows for the military.
Wow. Yeah.
And they're conditioned to go under. You ever want to do an easy show, do a military show, they're conditioned to take orders and boom, boom, boom.
I'm married to one.
No?
And he is actually a somnambulist, so when he does let me do sessions, it's wild.
My wife is hyper suggestible. I can say something to my wife, and she'll react. She doesn't get me under,
Yeah.
Like all the dishes, I go, slippery dishes, slippery. No, don't do that. Or she was laying on the couch once, and I don't know why. I set up. I go, "You're a positive magnet. The floor's a negative magnet." And she rolled off the floor off the couch and hit the floor. I felt so bad. But yeah, so some people just have that ability.
Yeah.
So they're hyper suggestible, But that's kind of the quality to have. That means you're very creative. You're real open minded. What do you think make up a good medium? What qualities do you think make up a good medium? What would you say?
I think there's always the aspect of surrender and learning to be able to move ego and preference out of the way. Readings never go how I think they're going to go. So learning not to listen to that left brain mind that wants to chatter and tell me everything that's going to come is really important. So there's that aspect of it. And I think the surrender is when we get to open up to the bigger trust, and then we get to experience source more. So it's really that ability to move parts of yourself aside and to be willing to be of service. I mean, you can't. Sure, can you make a lot of money off of this? Yeah, absolutely. Lots of people can. And I think the fraud people, unfortunately, they're in everything. Mediumship is not immune.
When I told Savannah you did my reading, a bunch of people, "Oh, that's not real. That's it. They should do." You don't argue with those people because they're going to believe what they're going to believe. Just like hypnosis isn't real. People come up to me after the show. I wasn't hypnotized. Well, you did everything I told you to do. Well, I would. It's just their ego. Their ego's always there. And
it has a job. Yeah. It has a job. Its role is to keep us safe. In mediumship, it gets in the way. We trip over it.
The stage hypnosis, people think they have to be stupid because it was a throwback to the 1900s. Yeah. Where the hypnotist would tell people they're covered with ants and stuff like that. They make them do stupid things. But actually, the more intelligent you are, the more creative you are.
Yeah.
That's a stereotype I've had to fight over 44 years, "Oh, you can't hypnotize me. I'm too smart."
I think also patience. It's not always going to be perfect. And you have to be willing to make some mistakes. There have been times when I've read things that weren't perfectly right, or I with mediumship, because we're receiving like an inner representation of things, my inner representation is not the same as maybe the client's.
Right?
Because cultural things, filters, my life experiences, and so sometimes those things can get in the way. And I think it takes a willingness to be humble and to say, you know what, I don't know what this means. Here is what I am experiencing. I see it, I hear it, I feel it. And so I think it takes a bit of discerning and learning to slow down. It takes some patience because everything can come in through so fast.
Do you have certain images, like they show you white? Like sometimes Teresa said, "Well, if I see white roses, it means this," or if I see something this it means. Or is that just that's something they did for themselves?
It's a useful thing to have. I do train my mediums to use those things, but I don't personally. I've never really set it up. But we can train the subconscious mind, or if we've had certain life experiences where it's just naturally that way, then yes, we can, and it can be helpful. It's like having kind of like a little resource library, like a list of your favorite inductions.
Cheat sheets. Oh, cheat sheet.
Yeah, kind of.
Cheat sheet.
I typically don't. I just show up, I move myself aside, I have high intention and good vibration, and I trust that whatever is going to come through is going to be exactly what the client needs, even if I don't understand it.
The reading took a lot of energy out of you. I remember you're saying.
It wasn't so much the reading as it was Vegas.
Vegas can be overwhelming.
Vegas is a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. And especially with energy and everything that happens in Vegas. So you know about the people that live underneath Vegas?
In the tunnels.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah. I feel that, James.
Yeah.
And so that, even as I'm just navigating through the hotel, I can feel that. And it's just a lot of energy. It's taxing.
It's sad, isn't it? Sad energy, or
dense, heavy.
If you let yourself open up too much, you can be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like when you feel empathy for people, sometimes you have to say, okay, I'm sorry they feel that way, but then kind of focus on something else.
And then you try to maybe plant those seeds of self-agency. Wow, that's tough. What are you going to do?
I don't. I'll watch a TV show and I'll see somebody on the show. I can feel what they're feeling.
Yeah.
Through the show,
Actually, I used to practice mediumship that way.
Yeah.
One of my favorites was watching, there's a show called The Dead Files. Have you ever seen that one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's my favorite to practice with. Because they've got the investigator on one hand and then they've got Amy Lee Allen on the other side. So she's doing her walkthrough, and I would sit there and watch it with my spouse, and I would tell him what I was picking up on. And sometimes I would get things that she wouldn't get, that the investigator would say at the end of the show, or a family member would say it. And so that's how I would practice. So you can actually do that by tuning in.
Cool way to do it, though.
But be in that place of curiosity and playfulness. Of just, I'm just going to play. We'll see what comes through. And then write things down. You'll be surprised.
I'm going to try that tomorrow morning when I do my self-hypnosis.
It's a really good way to practice. It is.
Yeah. I never thought about that. Yeah. I started reading books after I left as on mediumship, but I don't have the time. It's like I started my buddy that does the blindfold reading, and he wanted to be assigned to do these classes, but right now I'm at the stage of my life where I just want to be left alone and give me my big bag of pot and my bowl, and me and my wife are comfy, we're retired, and I just want to kind of back away from everything, and I don't want to learn anything else right now. And the time may come in a year or two where I'm in a better space to do it. But it's like, I would love to be able to do medium readings, but I just don't have the energy to focus on it right now. So I just kind of
2 minutes a day, James. 2 minutes a day, and you would be amazed the amount of things that you can learn within the span of even 2 weeks.
I'm going to try that now. I'll try it out if I do
I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah. Because I'm not one of those people that can sit there and read a book and if somebody shows me, yeah.
Because you already have all the abilities. You already have them. You've got the clairsentience. You've got clairaudience, clairvoyance, open. You even said you had some claircognizance. You have everything available.
Just got to put it all together.
It's the choice to use it. It's setting intention of, I'm open to this. I'm open to hear from my loved ones in spirit, high vibrating beings only. right? So it's good to have that intention
Right.
of benevolent beings only. And
You know,
then,
Teresa Capullo says that when she starts, she's going to channel positive. Because I see on like, I see on like Medium with the Teresa or the TV show where bad energy would take her over. You know, that's. I wonder how much that's just exaggerated.
some of it's for TV.
Yeah.
Some of it's true if we're doing things unconsciously. So there were a lot of times. So, oh God, I've lived in haunted places over time. I didn't always know they were haunted when I moved in. And then as you live there, you get used to things. You start catching little things like spiritual breadcrumbs. And there was one place that was really, really haunted. And I was in CJEP, and I moved in with my college sweetheart. We were planning on getting married. I ended up dropping out of school. I lost all ambition. I went straight into depression. I had a hard time finding jobs and sticking with it. I never even realized it was the weight and the heaviness of the apartment. That apartment had people who died in fires there.
Oh, wow.
And they rebuilt it on top. And so I was having all kinds of experiences. I thought I was losing my mind. I thought I was crazy. I'd be waking up at 3 a.m. I would hear like the smoke detector going off. I would smell it. I would feel burning on my skin. I would be in a panic thinking, oh God, I have to get my pets. We have to get out. My fiance would be so angry. He'd be like, you're crazy. Go back to bed. There is nothing happening. And that happened for several months until we found out that there actually was a fire there. And then we chose to move. And after we moved, that depression lifted. So, yes, part of it is very real.
Energy, vibrational, stick to the walls kind of negative energy there.
Well, yeah, but also I was unconscious. And so because I was unconscious, I was wide open to anything to play with my energy or to drain my energy and fill their own batteries, right? So when we're unconscious, yeah, that can actually happen. They're not exaggerating that. When we're conscious and we're mindful, we're discerning, then it's not so taxing.
What's interesting to me is getting back to control is you don't have to use your mind. You don't. For me, I was all so much in my mind, 28 attention deficit as a kid, so much in my mind 24/7 that the thought that wait a minute, that's not who you are, and to be able to shut that off for me was a game changer in my life.
Yeah,
and that's only been the last 5 years. I could shut that off and say, oh, so this is what it means. Yeah.
Yeah, we get to decide who we are every single moment of the day, but we forget.
I remember when we moved as a kid, and I had a bad feeling about this house. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, everything went wrong in that house. So, yeah, every moment.
Yeah. We could actually regress you back to that, and we could connect to what there was there. And you could actually learn about what it was that was giving you that feeling.
My sister told me what it was, believe me.
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't need to go. I know.
It's wild, right? But when we're in the experience, we don't always have the objectivity. And I think that's the other part of mediumship that's really important, is trying to have that objectivity. Because when you're in it, it's not obvious.
Plus, everything happens. He made you who you are. You wouldn't be who you are if that hadn't happened. The course of things that happen in your life change the course of your life to make you who you are.
Absolutely. I needed all of those blocks to build this foundation for sure.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. Aww. Well, do you have any other questions or thoughts?
Eventually, I want to do it. You have to do it with my wife if you're still going to be one-on-ones.
Yeah.
And because she wants to do it, and she's a little bit skeptical, but yeah, she's curious.
Yeah, well, let's plan for a time, but I won't do a reading. I will take her through a session and she can have her own experience.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming on today and just sharing your really cool journey and
Thank you.
The whole experiences that you've had with mediumship and how it's kind of changed your life some.
Yeah, you walked through my life. You changed my life for the better.
Aw, I appreciate that. I've enjoyed knowing you too and hearing about all of the cool adventures you've had with hypnosis.
Thank you.
And let me know how your practice goes.
I'm sure we'll meet again sometime, somewhere.
Yes. Well, hopefully. We'll see. I enjoy Hypnothoughts. I do plan on going back. I just can't do them all. There are so many conferences and so many different things that at one point I'm going to have to just decide and commit to a key couple and maybe stick to those.
When you got a big audience, just come back to Hypno Stage and Hypno Thoughts in the end. Yeah.
It's a lot of energy.
Make it California. Come out to California. Come back out to Sacramento. Come see me.
I will. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But thanks so much for coming on and for asking great questions and exploring mediumship with me today.
My pleasure.
And where do people reach you if they'd like to have a conversation with you about hypnosis or your experience?
Well, up till this July, they can reach me at my last name, Szeles, Szeles, at Szeles.com. My website's www.szeles.com.
Are you keeping the email attached?
No. That should go back to Gmail.
Okay.
But I've had that email for 44 years. I'm a legend in my own mind.
Aw. And I'm sure many others. I'm sure there have been many people that have learned from you. I know Jim Kellner loved you very much. And Scott Sandlin had wonderful things about you to say as well. So not just in your own mind.
Thank you.
All right, Soulful Seekers, thank you so much for joining us today. I will try to put some contact info for James in the show notes so that if you want to ask about his journey, his experiences, you know how to connect with him. As for now, we'll say goodbye. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay inspired. Bye for now. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Trauma and Transcendence. If you found value in today's episode, remember to subscribe and to share. This podcast is brought to you by healingbeyondtrauma.com, supporting your journey beyond trauma and into transcendence. Until next time, take care and keep transcending.